वेलकम टू आवर नेशन स्टेट डायलॉग सीरीज राष्ट्र राज्य संवाद श्रृंखला में आप सबका स्वागत है. I am Dr. Geeta Kochhar, moderator for today's discussion. The series is a multidimensional dialogue to engage various scholars, diplomats, practitioners, strategists, army personnel, writers, academicians, and people across the globe to initiate a discussion over various issues concerning nation-state paradigm, approaches like politics, economics, diplomacy, international relations, language, and culture, and in many other topics. We invite new individuals in every episode of the series to talk about their concerned field of work, study, or research. The idea is to have better knowledge over various issues in brief and to comprehend the minds. It is a knowledge-enhancing and engaging platform whereby our young minds will learn to look through the lens of others in a more pragmatic and rational way. Today in our series, we have with us Major General BK Sharma. Major General BK Sharma was commissioned in the Sikh Light Infantry Regiment in 1976 and superannuated in 2012. He is the director of United Services Institution of India, India's oldest think tank established by the British in 1870. He was conferred 3 military awards by the President of India for rendering exceptional distinguished national service and for displaying courage. Besides, he was conferred National Award for Nation Building by the Confederation of Educational Excellence of India in 2017. He has tenanted prestigious assignments in India, including command of a mountain division on China border and senior faculty member at the National Defense College. He has represented his country at the UN as military observer in Central America and has been India's defense attaché in Central Asia. He specializes in strategic net assessment methodology, scenario building, and strategic gaming. He has visited over 35 countries as member of international delegations and educational tours. He has participated in 29 international conferences abroad and several such conferences in India. He has edited about 8 books, contributed more than 60 seminal papers in the Indian and foreign journals and newspapers, and presented 30 research papers at international conferences. He edits prestigious USI Strategic Yearbook. He has lectured at the prestigious military establishment, policy think tanks and universities, literature festivals in India and abroad, and he regularly participates in Track 2 level dialogues. It is a great pleasure to have him with us to discuss on evolving geopolitics for India post-abrogation of Article 370 in Kashmir. Welcome, Major General, to our program. To begin with, let me first question you about the US-China dynamics. The US and China are in trade war for quite some time. Due to COVID-19, the issues between them have gone worse. There is greater possibility of Cold War II happening. So how do you see it and the situation in post-Cold War II scenario?
Thank you, Dr. Kochhar, for giving me this opportunity to engage with you and your viewers. In fact, I'm really privileged to be on this show. And coming straight to your question, I would say that yes, we are already into a new Cold War, which is characteristically different from the Cold War of Soviet and US confrontation. Firstly, let me dwell briefly into the first Cold War. And one reason for US to engage with China in the early 70s was to look at China as a balancer against the Soviet Union, right? And that point in time, they wanted to tilt the balance of power and the fragmentation of Soviet Union took place. Then there was an assumption in the US policy makers that with the passage of time, we will be able to cultivate China and make it as an international stakeholder, right? Without understanding China's civilizational DNA and its past strategic behavior, right? That it has been a great power in history till about the 18th century. And it had that yearning to probably rejuvenate old China. So with the passage of time, as China grew, the balance of power started tilting. And China benefited itself immensely from the international system and the liberal US policies, be it trade, technology, and many other dimensions. And with the passage of time, it emerged as a credible competitor to the power of United States of America. So then about 2015 or so, during the Obama era, when US realized they actually had a major policy shift and what they call is pivot to Asia. Now, one of the tenets of pivot to Asia was actually balance China in the Indo-Pacific region. And this policy got more traction with Trump coming to power. And when he enunciated a slew of documents like National Security Strategy 2017, subsequently the Defense Strategy, then they came with the Nuclear Posture Review. Subsequently, there was an Indo-Pacific strategy in which they categorically termed China as a rival, right? And with that started the trade war, the trade sanctions, and the technological wars and things like that. So ultimately, what has happened now that the Corona period, which should have been utilized by the two countries to deal with the strategic shock, this has further polarized and accentuated their fault line and plunged them into a deeper and more sinister form of a Cold War. Now, what has happened in the bargain, the both notions, competing notions, one was Pax Americana and second was Pax Sinica, have actually received a setback. Why Pax Americana? Because while Trump took a very hardened stand against China, at the same time, he went anti-globalization and he started decoupling with international institutions. And then his own track record of dealing with the internal fault lines of US, the ethnic or the, say, racial discrimination there. And subsequently, his ability to cope up with coronavirus has given a major setback to credibility of United States of America. Also, under his era, the Euro-Atlantic alliance came under a lot of strain, like NATO and whatever policy formulations they had. On the other hand, China tried to sort of seize this window of opportunity and it pushed its belligerence coupled with its what you call is the wolf warrior diplomacy. But that also received a major setback from rest of the world, right? So as a result, these two major powers today have taken an antagonistic or a confrontationist course, and that is plunging the world into what you call is a VUCA world, which is characterized by volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity, So we are into a new kind of a world, and many people are talking about that because of the flashpoints and their confrontations, be it Hong Kong Security Act, Taiwan, many other issues like South China Sea and all. So we are actually getting into a Thucydides trap. That means whenever there is a sort of a balance of power, a rising power and a relatively shrinking power, a kind of a clash is inevitable. So many people are talking about this new Cold War as if the stage is set for a Thucydides trap. But my point of view is that this Cold War is not a replica of the Cold War. Because if you look at Soviet economy was not intertwined with global economy, and there were typical military blocs like Warsaw and NATO. Here, China is very much embedded into the international global system. They have major stakes, and the economies of Europe, US and China are deeply intertwined. The supply chains are deeply intertwined. So my point of view is that at this juncture, I don't think that we'll have a classic Cold War of the era that we had witnessed during the 80s. But what is important here is that in the whole balance of power, there is one alignment which is actually solidifying or gaining traction, and that is China, Russia strategic alignment, which is now getting expanded to Turkey, Iran, and to an extent Pakistan being part of it. On the other hand, a much diffuse and amorphous concept like Quad is also gaining traction. It has gained traction because of China's belligerent behavior. We are also talking about D10, expanded G7, and such like formulations have come to the fore. But today, there are a number of uncertainties. We don't know how this whole thing is going to pan out because of the intersection of interest of Asia vis-a-vis Euro-Atlantic alliance. And what I see that there is going to be a prolonged period of strategic uncertainty where these major powers will start jostling for strategic influence, and the middle level powers and the smaller nations will keep aligning and realigning their interests till we have reached a phase of a notional balance of power where the sides start accommodating each other's interests. So I do not see a typical kind of an all-out war, but the gray zone kind of conflict which will gain traction and will come to the fore. And this will pose a challenge for a country like India, how to navigate in the choppy waters, because we are so enamored to our so-called strategic autonomy. And it has present India with some very, very hard choices. And it requires a very deft diplomacy and astute statesmanship how to navigate these choppy waters.
Thank you. Very interesting. I mean, you rightly pointed out that the Americans were supportive of China, and China gained a lot from globalization, which is where it is standing now. And now the Americans are really retreating back from this globalization thing. And rightly stated that India is going to really make a lot of choices. But I think most of the scenario has also changed because what has happened in India, say, for example, the Article 370. So after the scrapping of Article 370, there has been concerns of its implication on India. So how do you assess the internal situation in Kashmir now and the external implications vis-a-vis China and Pakistan?
See, you very rightly said, Jammu and Kashmir is extremely vital to India's national security, because any internal security developments in Kashmir and Ladakh are inextricably linked with our external security dimensions, that is with Pakistan and China, who are in some kind of a collusivity. This abrogation of Article 370 has brought about a paradigm geopolitical shift in this region. And the government of India had declared that, well, it will put Kashmir on the new path of development and deal with security in a much more comprehensive manner. But two disruptive events have impeded that initiative. First was the necessity of a prolonged lockdown immediately after 370 abrogation. And then came this corona pandemic, which has retarded some of those initiatives. But on the positive side, what has happened that despite alienation and anger, security scenario in the state has remained within the manageable limits. There is anger, but we have not been able to see the kind of high profile targeting by the terrorists, and there has been curb on infiltration. But low level terrorism or militancy incidents are still remaining. Earlier, organizations Lashkar-e-Taiba and Hizbul Mujahideen were very active, but they have lost their appeal, and now this has become more of an accelerator kind of a moment where these young teenagers who indoctrinated or misguided, they start getting together in 8s and 10s, and without a appointed leader, they start acting on their own, and they do not have the capacity to sort of take some very high profile targets, but they can very much take on the soft targets like the political workers, panchayat, sarpanch, nambardars, some policemen and journalists and things like that. So that nuisance value is very much there. They also run short of weapons, but Pakistan is finding new ways of supplying them, whether it is through tunnels on the border or making use of UAVs. But more importantly, Pakistan's propaganda machinery in Kashmir remains very much intact. These Maulvis are still spitting a lot of venom in the mosque, and these teachers who have been indoctrinated, they start influencing young minds at schools. Then the enlightened middle class has also joined the bandwagon, and a number of retired government officials, just to regain their credibility and goodwill of the society, they have also become part of this propaganda machinery. So risks are very much there. We need to work with full swing. We should not be putting our guards down. And whatever disruption we've done of that terrorism ecosystem, those efforts must continue. At the same time, we need to engage with the youth and start political process there at whatever level. Coupled with that, we have to deliver on good governance, corruption, and development, job opportunities, and things like that. Because if these initiatives are not taken, then, and if some kind of a tipping point occurs there, if there is a failed encounter or some issue related to women, or there is a desecration of a religious place, these are the tipping points which can again galvanize the local population there to resort to agitational politics. So I think we have a very critical window and we should move in the right earnest there. As regard to role of Pakistan, Pakistan's behavior with regard to Kashmir will not change. It is part of their two-nation cherry agenda. Kashmir, to keep Kashmir alive is very important to sort of that manufacture that existential threat for Pakistan, which gives the primacy of Pakistan's military. Otherwise, they will lose their relevance and their salience. So they will keep the pot boiling in one way or the other. What they are doing is now, besides trying to make out that this is an indigenous movement, they've also coined a new kind of organization like the Resistance Front on the lines of Palestine. And they're trying to make it look as if it's a pan-Islamic and indigenized movement, and Pakistan has very little role to play. But diplomatically, they've started, engaging with new players like Turkey, Malaysia, and also start a multi-domain kind of a terrorism, wherein besides the kinetic means, they've also gone into non-kinetic means like running number of these websites, blog sites, social media platforms to indoctrinate people and spit a lot of hatred and venom. So in the cognitive domain, this terrorism and militancy is very much alive, and that needs to be addressed in a very big way. Now, a new factor that has come into fore, one more issue I want to say, that Pakistan has very shrewdly trying to use this window by now sort of having elections in Gilgit-Baltistan, and the merger of Gilgit-Baltistan as the fifth province of Pakistan is very much on the cards. They will do their own version of Article 370 to Gilgit-Baltistan and POK and give a new kind of a fait accompli to India, which will probably further exacerbate the geopolitical situation there. China has emerged as a de facto third party in Kashmir because of the CPAC and the interest they have in Gilgit-Baltistan. And it's keeping with the host of other factors which have been discussed time and again. China has taken this ultra, I would say, belligerent posture on line of actual control to reclaim the 1960 claim line. And they have adopted this posture. But in this posture, there is an element of signaling about Gilgit-Baltistan and Pakistan, so that, India doesn't take an extra adventurous option towards Gilgit-Baltistan, because if that happens, that will actually scuttle their CPAC. So we are into a very serious kind of a situation where internal security is still not fully under control. And now we have China knocking at our doors, and the collusivity with Pakistan is very much on the cards. So that is the scenario there, and we need a very comprehensive internal security and our external security strategy to deal with this situation.
Yeah, very rightly pointed out. I think terrorism is one of the factors India has been dealing for decades now. I remember External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar stating at one of the forums is that India, because of India, terrorism has not expanded to Southeast Asia and other countries. Probably that is one of the India has been a very strong factor to control and not let terrorism spread to other countries. Having said that, maybe I would want to shift to the geopolitics that is evolving in the region. How do you see the evolving geopolitics in the region and the strategic maneuvering of India as a rising power?
See, one of the most dominant factor in the geopolitics of the region is China. It's an elephant in the room, right? Because South Asia figures out very prominently in China's strategic calculus. Be it dealing with the three evils, that is, what they call is terrorism, separatism, and extremism, because there are a lot of Buddhist population which stays in this region, be it Nepal, Bhutan, bordering areas of India. That is one factor. The second is the larger geostrategic factor, and that is its Belt and Road Initiative, right? And three prominent corridors of this Belt and Road Initiative and its maritime silk route actually lies in and around India's neighborhood. You have the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which is called the flagship of the signature initiative of Belt and Road. Then you have China-Nepal Economic Corridor, and then you have China-Myanmar Economic Corridor. In addition to that, at least three important countries of our neighborhood are part of maritime silk route: Bangladesh, Maldives, and you have Sri Lanka. Chinese are also involved in construction of dual-use infrastructure in the Indian Ocean region. There are about 20 such projects which they are taking. They've also, besides their bases in Djibouti and now Gwadar, which is a de facto a Chinese maritime outpost, they're also hobnobbing with Cambodia today. And it's a matter of time that you will see some maritime footprints of China there. They're setting the entire strategic space in South Asia and Indian Ocean. And if these initiatives succeed, these will alter the geopolitical and geostrategic landscape of our region at the cost of India, because our strategic space will shrink and our strategic influence will get dented in this region. So it is very important that we have to deal with this, and particularly look at the developments in Nepal. That do we want Nepal to emerge another Pakistan? Or look at the developments that are taking place in Bangladesh today. 22 billion kind of investment in the critical infrastructure in all major areas. And China is the larger exporter of arms to most of our South Asian countries. So this is a very big challenge for India. Because if India really wants to be a leader, say a leading power in the world and a power to reckon with, then it must be a preeminent power first in South Asia and in the Indian Ocean region. Unless we are able to reclaim our strategic influence in this region, we cannot be a major power elsewhere in the Indo-Pacific or in rest of the world. So therefore, I think there has been some degree of complacency because of our system in the past, that whatever projects we had unleashed or we had promised, the lines of credit, and many other things that we had done, because of some bureaucratic delays, these were not progressing very well. So I think we need to sit back and see that whatever pledges we make, these are taken to their logical conclusion. We ought to be a net security provider in our immediate neighborhood and also an anchor of regional economic integration. And to that extent, I would say we need to re-energize our neighborhood first policy, give an impetus to our Act East policy, projects like Sagar, security and growth for all in the region, Sagar Mala, that is creating a network of ports in the Indian Ocean littoral, Indian Ocean uh, region initiatives such as IORA, that is Indian Ocean Rim Association, and IONS, that is Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, need to be expanded and given little more more attention needs to be paid to that. We need to probably have a de novo look at our relations with Iran, which is our gateway not only to Afghanistan but Central Asia, and also an alternate source of energy. As also resort to external balancing while we take our own initiatives to reclaim our strategic space. We need to take more pro role in the new propositions like Quad, D10, and expanded G7. For that, we need to develop leverages so that we become sort of an important vector in those kind of initiatives. So for that, we need a very deft foreign policy, and we need to build capacities to be a credible player in this whole gamut. Then only and only we will be able to balance China in the region.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, most of the region issues without China, we really can't talk about, as you rightly said, is the elephant in the room. But if I say the relations between India and China, especially because what has happened on the Ladakh and the post-Galwan thing, I think there are, talks about the long haul and all of that. And so my last question to you is also related to the India-China relations. I mean, how do you see the future of India-China relations in the post-Galwan?
See, this is the most formidable challenge that today we have. And what is China's perception about India is very important. They think that India is a subordinate power in the region, in China-centric Asia. As long as India is ready to live under the tutelage of China, they will have no problems with us, right? Second issue is that they really get disturbed if we cozy up to United States of America, and in the recent past, with the signing of these agreements like Limova, Comcasa, and probably Beka is now in the pipeline, they got unnerved that probably we become part of the grand encirclement design which is being viewed by United States of America. And therefore, it is high time that India is shown its place. And that was, among other things, one reason for China to do what they did at the line of actual control. Without getting to the evolution of this present state of affairs, if we look at Pakistan, China and India relations of the state at the line of actual control, it can be bookmarked by two things. First, China wants to impose a fait accompli on us, that 1960 line is sacrosanct, uske baad baat karo. Whereas India has taken a very strident position of restoring status quo ante. Now, it is within this framework we have to see how do we deal with China. And there is no denying the fact that militarily we cannot be sort of weak. We have to have our strong military posture and keep impressing upon Chinese to withdraw, that will not get cowed down. Second thing is that whatever initiatives or whatever punitive measures we have taken in the technological domain or economic domain, those must stay. But more important here is how early can India re-emerge from this corona period and give boost to its economy, right? Because if your economy is not good, then you will not have the money for defense spending, which is very much needed, at least for next one decade or so. so that we are able to bridge this power asymmetry between Chinese and us. But we have to be prepared for a long haul with China. There is a bipartisan view in India today that no matter what we do, China is going to be our rival. And in the best case scenario, it will be a combative competitor. And the nexus between them and Pakistanis is going to solidify further. And with that assumption, we have to move. Therefore, we have to impress upon China and work towards a new modus vivendi. Now, what is that modus vivendi? That China will have to be told in uncertain terms to respect and heed India's core interests and our sensitivities, because it has hardly respected our sensitivities vis-a-vis terrorism and what Pakistan has been doing. You know, Mamlapuram happened, and within months, you know, they went for on three occasions, they sided with Pakistan in the United Nations Security Council and in the General Assembly. That's no good relations, right? And they betrayed us on all the agreements that have been signed since 1903 till 2013. So we have to tell them that this cannot continue, right? So therefore, a new modus vivendi would be that let's say very clearly, sit on the table, disengage, de-escalate, delineate different perceptions of line of actual control on map, sign it. Thereafter, see that these areas, either we don't touch these areas, either side, or we have a joint mechanism to monitor the developments in these areas till such time we are able to find an enduring solution to the border dispute, right? And at the same time, China should not hurt India's interest vis-a-vis Pakistan, and our core sensitivities and core interests need to be respected. If Chinese are ready to engage with this on these terms, well and good. If they are not, then we have to be prepared politico-diplomatically and militarily to deal with the hostile China for times to come.
Thank you very much, Major General. That was really interesting, because very rightly said, you know, each state has to be very sensitive about other countries, you know, sensitivities as well as the core interests. And if China is not, you know, promising or not keeping, you know, the guarantees that it has given at the political level or at the, you know, economic or other engagement diplomatic levels, then we really have to rethink about how we process our relations. With that note, I think we really need to salute all the soldiers who are, you know, standing at the border and going to really face already at the sub-zero level, and also going to face the winter if things do not dilute as soon as possible. Thank you very much, Major General Ji, for joining us. And it was indeed a very interesting discussion. Thank you all for watching our episode. We hope to continue our conversations. Keep watching and keep learning. Thank you all. Namaste. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Dr. Geeta. Take care. Bye-bye.